Good afternoon, everyone. My project's extending the shelf life and season for Australian cherries, and I hope to do this by understanding the physiology and ripening of cherry senescence, and also to determine critical control points within the cherry supply chain of where quality is lost, and to develop guidelines for best practice. So, cherries are delicious and great for your health, but the problem with them is that they're only available for a very short period of time. This narrow window of availability is due to the seasonality of cherries. They're only harvested once, and the crop's harvested by hand. They're also a non-climacteric fruit, meaning that fruit quality cannot improve post-harvest, it only declines. And not only does quality decline, but at a quite high rate. It's quite a perishable crop. And this perishability and quality loss is seen by the consumer as flesh softening, stem brownness, loss of flavour, and also post-harvest decay. So how come cherries are so perishable? They're like the pansies of the fruit bowl. And this is due to respiration. So respiration is the main physiological process underpinning senescence or fruit ripening, and it's this process that leads to the decline in fruit quality. So while cherries are on the tree, the process of respiration is balanced by the resources coming from the stem or the peduncle, and upon harvest, the fruit's detached from this nutrient source, and consequently the fruit has to rely on its own internal reserve of sugars, organic acids, hemicellulose, cellulose to respire. And this process of respiration is tightly linked to temperature. So what can we do about respiration? We can look at good temperature management and also modified atmosphere packaging. Modified atmosphere packaging can sort of trick fruit into a state of hibernation and suppress ethylene synthesis and also microbial spoilage. So now we know about the problem that we're facing. We'll have a look at the cherry supply chain, because it's a good approach to sort of understand what's going on. So the cherry supply chain is broken down into different stop points, if you like, where the fruit travels along the journey to the consumer. And cold chain management is very critical in between these stop points. I'll put some question marks between the retail store and the consumer, because that's one pathway that we can't guarantee that the cool chain's maintained. I know my dad has a fridge in his car, but there's not many people that would go to that extent. So we know about temperature having such an effect on fruit quality. I've done some sort of observational studies towards this, and spent an afternoon out at Hanson's Orchard, our industry partner, and measured fruit before and after hydrocooling. I measured fruit temperature before packaging, and had a look at minimum storage temperatures as well to gauge what's the lower limit of fruit storage temperature. So fruit prior hydrocooling coming out of the field, it's harvested, reflective tarps are placed on top, and once that fruit arrives at the pack house, I took some measurements and they were about 20 degrees, which was expected. But then after hydrocooling for about 5 minutes, the field heat taken out of them, the fruit was still between 10 and 15 degrees, which was surprising. But importantly, I measured fruits before packaging, and they were a good 1 to 2 degrees, which is very important for shelf life preservation. We also did some small-scale freezing trial work, and we found that fruit stored at negative 1.5 degrees for 2 days remained between 1 and 2 degrees, which was surprising. So other trials for this year is looking at a comparison of current commercial packaging options, and the other one's looking at respiration, measuring that, looking at gas atmospheres as a function of temperature, and MAP. And the MAP product that's used as lifespan. So with the packaging comparison trial, we looked at 3 commercially available box liners, Lifespan, Peak Fresh Green and Peak Fresh Black. So these products are quite important because all fruit that's processed in the orchard is packed into these box liners and then shipped off. If they're packed into grape bags, they're surrounded by an MAP bag. If they're packed into punnets, they're surrounded by an MAP bag. So these MAP bags are very, very important. The other packaging option I wanted to look at was is called Breathe Away. That fits into the intelligent MAP packaging category, but it's not intelligent as such. It's more temperature responsive. So I've got a little graph here from Breathe Away that sort of shows that when typical polymers, so that's your standard MAP film, approaching increasing temperature, so red's warmer, cool is blue, a switch is activated and the Breathe Away membrane becomes more breathable. So it switches to the amorphous state, so it untangles and becomes more permeable to air, and it allows for the fruit's higher respiration, and you don't get anaerobic conditions off flavours, which is quite important, and we see it would fit very well into the gap between retail, so at your store, and consumer, where there's that period of virtually no cold chain management. So looking at the packaging comparison trial, the results were really surprising. So Peak Fresh Black and Green both went anaerobic within 2 to 3 days. Lifespan's looking quite good for long-term storage. Oxygen levels about 5%, carbon dioxide about 10% is ideal. Breathe Away, oxygen's a little bit high, but you'd expect that because the trial stored at 4 degrees, the temperature switch hasn't essentially been activated, but also it's a custom-made product. So we were given clearly fresh bags, and that's their sort of home use bag. But if Woolworths decide to go through the temperature management beyond retail option, I see Breathe Away as a lot of potential. So implications, given that all fruit leaving the pack house is enclosed in MAP box liners, essentially you're affecting all fruit quality leaving the store. And decreasing risk holding onto fruit at end of season with those good atmospheres. Looking at respiration quickly, this trial is currently underway and we're monitoring it as we speak. This is some preliminary results from gas atmospheres, and you can see here that carbon dioxide levels are looking pretty good, but oxygen levels, so the dark blue line here is Breathe Away, light blue is Lifespan. Lifespan's on the decline, may possibly be anaerobic by now, but I'd expect that from Breathe Away because it's at 10 degrees and given it's a temperature responsive packaging, you should get the anaerobic levels. So the implications for this research, once it's completed and we have our respiration values and also our gas atmospheres, we've been doing fruit quality sampling as well as sensory analysis. I've got some pictures of cherry stems there. Brown one's looking pretty horrible on your right, and the nice green ones are on your left. So we aim to look at the respiration rates over time, linking it with quality, so we can produce a model to give a defined shelf life of a product, and that will allow for products to be positioned. So with a known temperature history, you can receive cherries and say, okay, we can hold on to these, or we can mark them down and sell them, depending on the temperatures they've experienced. Okay, I'd like to say thank you to ARC, Woolworths, UTAS, my industry collaborator Hanson Orchards, and also APO, who have supplied our Breatheway bags. Thanks very much.